Hello, welcome back to I Got Board
I got
Game.
board game.
I Got Board Game. I am Ben,
I'm John.
and today we are here to do a review of a small filler card game with a Japanese gardening kind of a theme. And that game is
Cherry watching,
Cherry Watching. Nice.
also known as Ohanami
Ohanami.
for that.
And yeah, no, correcting myself, Ohanami is probably the correct pronunciation. It just came out wrong because I broke up the syllables. But Ohanami, it means a flower viewing, not cherries. Flower viewing in Japanese. And so the whole theme of the game is you're all competing. This plays, I think it's 2 to 4 players. Says in 20 minutes, and you're all competing to build your own gardens with different water features, rock features, grass, plant life, and cherry blossoms. So that's kind of the flower viewing part of it. And that is the theme, but it is ultimately a drafting card game with a bit of a I don't actually know what this mechanic is called, but kind of like a ascending order or ladder mechanic. It's kind of a growing mechanic or becoming more popular in games over the recent years, since other games like The Game or The Mind, which we've reviewed on this channel. And so it's kind of combining drafting with that ascending order, consecutive number kind of a mechanism. And so to give you guys an idea of how the game plays, I'll show you a picture of the setup and I'll just briefly go over the rules. And then since this is the summary review, we'll get into our ratings and guessing the weight right afterward. But you can check our detailed review for more detailed pros and cons on what we actually thought about the game. And so for now, I will share a picture of the game setup. And so in this game, you can see it's basically all cards, this deck of cards. And then this game is set up for 4 players. You can see here, they have their cards and their hand of cards. And so the game lasts only 3 rounds. And at the start of each round, everyone is dealt 10 cards from the deck. And from those 10 cards, everyone's going to draft from those at the same time. And so if you don't know how drafting works, you'll basically, in this game, you'll draft 2 cards, basically choosing 2 cards from the 10 that you're holding. And, basically trying to choose 2 that you plan on maybe using this current round. And everyone's doing this at the same time. So everyone chooses 2 from their starting hand of 10. And then they'll pass the remainder of their hand, so the remaining 8 cards, to the person clockwise from them or to their left. And then they'll basically go in order from whoever decided last or passed their hand last. That person will first reveal what they're going to do with those 2 cards that they drafted. And the whole point is you're trying to build up your gardens to get the most points by the end of the game. And so in each round, at the end of each round, which is when all our hands are gone, all the cards have been drafted away, you're going to score points differently depending on the round. So in the first round, at the very end, you're only going to score your blue or water cards for points. And every blue card you have in your garden so far at the end of the round are going to be worth 3 points each. And then in the second round, you're going to, at the end of the second round, you're going to score all the water and plant cards you have in your gardens. And so water cards will be scored again for 3 points, but then you also score green or plant cards for 4 points. And in the third round, the last round, you'll score water, plant, and stone cards, or blue, green, and gray cards. And then the gray cards are the new one in that round that will be worth 7 points each, where then the other 2 are still worth 3 and 4 as in the previous round. And then also, since at the end, that's the end of the game, you'll score however many points for the cherry blossoms you have, which is kind of in a increasing scale based on the score sheet. But so going back to the drafting, then that happens in a round. During that round, when you draft your 2 cards, you're going to go in order and choose whether you're going to add both of them to your gardens, or only one of them and discard the other, or even discard both of them. Basically, if you can't use them, or you drafted them to discard so that it's not being passed around to another player to draft anymore. And so when you add them to your gardens, basically you're going to set up a column of cards like shown here in front of each player that are going to be staggered. And so at most you can have 3 columns during the game. And once you put your cards out, the cards you drafted, you can't move them anymore. So it's kind of set in place, forming your gardens. And so at most you have 3 gardens, but then the rule is when you're drafting new cards, you can add them to any of your columns or gardens, but you can only do so by adding them to the bottom or let me see, yeah, like here, add them to the bottom so that it's the lowest card, or add them to the top of the columns as the highest card. So you can never insert cards in between other numbers. And so that's why in this case here, if you see this garden here that this person has 46, 52, 58, 62, they can never add a card that is between 46 and 62 into this garden anymore. If they have another garden slot, they could add a card number in between there to the other garden, but that's kind of the limitation, right? Your cards have to be in increasing order, and you can only add to the very top or the very bottom when you're drafting cards. You're not limited to only adding like the same type of card. This person just happens to have only all blue in this one garden, but you're not limited to adding a certain type to a garden. The only limitation is the number. And so then, yeah, after you draft your 2, and then the person who finished deciding last, they'll do something with the 2 that they drafted, then going clockwise, everyone will do something with the 2 that they drafted. Then you'll pick up your new hand and draft another 2 cards from those remaining cards, and then pass the rest of your hand to the left again. And so you'll do that until all the cards are gone, and that finishes the whole first round. Then you'll deal 10 cards to everyone again, and your gardens stay there. They continue between each round. And so then you'll have your new 10 cards, you'll draft 2 again, but in the second round, you'll pass the remainder of your hand counterclockwise, and then third round, you'll go back to passing clockwise. And then again, at the very end of each round, you'll be scoring those points: blues in the first round, blues and greens in the second, blue, green, gray in the third, plus cherry blossoms. And then whoever has the most points at the end wins. And that's the whole game.
Yep.
And so with that done, that's basically all the rules. The only thing you might be missing is the scoring of the cherry blossoms, which I said is an increasing scale, and it's shown on the score sheet that comes with the game. So you can see it gives you a reminder of each round, what you score at the end of each one. And then the cherry blossoms at the end of the game follow this scale down here, right? Each one you get is basically worth more points for each additional one you have, right? So if you have 1, it's worth 1 point. But if you have 2, you're basically adding 2 more points. So it's a total of 3 points. If you have 3, you're adding 3 more points. So that's why you get a total of 6 points, and so on. So it's kind of this, in a way, exponential kind of increase in points. And yeah, that's the whole game, this filler drafting game. And so getting into our ratings, and John guesses the weight. Wait. So yeah, John will guess the weight to try to win a copy of the game, and then give us his rating for the game.
Yeah, so as we talked about, my guess for the weight is, I was fluctuating between these, but I'm going to go with 1.76. It's definitely a lighter game, in my opinion. It doesn't have a lot of rules, as we mentioned. There is some kind of, strategy involved with the game, but it's pretty simplistic, right? You're really just scoring up and down. You have a few columns, and you're just placing from, ascending or descending order, and you have to kind of choose which cards you want to do. So there is some strategy involved of what you want to utilize, but it's a very simple game, very easy to pick up. As we shown, you can explain the rules probably in about 5-10 minutes at most, and just get started and just play through. So my weight rating is a 1.76. And in terms of my rating for the game, I would give this a solid 7. as a filler game. I think it's a great one. It's very easy to pick up. It's kind of in the vein of the Mind, but I actually think that comparatively, this is actually a more competitive game. So I think there's a lot more value in the replayability of playing with different people or kind of playing this game over and over versus the Mind, as you probably, if you watch our other review about it, is a different kind of game than that. It's also cooperative, so there's also some different elements to it. As a comparison of similar mechanics of, you know, scaling in numbers. So I think it's a very solid 7 for my rating.
Okay, and so before we go onto Board Game Geek and check John's weight against how the community rated the weight, I will mention my rating since it'll be shown on the Board Game Geek page. My rating is also a 7.
You copied me.
We did not talk about this in advance, people. So yeah, I give it a 7 because I think it is just that solid filler game, right? It is light, so it won't go up to 8 or anything. And I think my highest rated filler game or lighter game so far has been like the Mind and maybe a couple other ones, and that was like a 7.5, being like kind of the top there for me as far as filler game goes. And so Ohanami is pretty close up there, but just a little lower because I don't find it as enjoyable as an experience like the Mind, but it is a filler that after I gave it a shot toward the end of last year, I've been teaching it to a lot of people. Like Ohanami, I think is, yeah, again, as John mentioned, very easy to teach to people. And then it kind of seems like, for me, I would say a step up from older drafting games that I would use to teach drafting to people, particularly Sushi Go, right? Where Sushi Go was drafting and set collection, but still, again, mostly that drafting. This game is pretty much all drafting, but with the very interesting limitation, which is the whole numbering of your cards in each garden. And so, yeah, so that's why it's kind of the new go-to drafting filler game for me. And so a solid 7. And so lastly, to check John's weight rating, 1.76.
0.76.
On Board Game Geek,
1.76.
it is a, you're not close.
Not close at all, huh?
1.
Oh, 1.13. I thought I was going
close.
so low. I needed to go all the way to the bottom.
which is really light though. That's kind of surprisingly light. Actually, let me see. I can open
like Candyland
right here. Let me just check with Sushi Go.
No, you should check Candyland.
Is lighter than Sushi Go? That's not right, people. That's not right. Drafting and set collection in Sushi Go is so light. It's so light. Come on, dealing with the number limitation definitely makes this game more thinky.
Yeah, but set collection is not even that bad. You're like, you know, I guess technically there is some slight choice selection, but no, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, we'll get into it in our detailed review of kind of the smaller details, I think, that makes this stand apart from Sushi Go. But I will say just now, I think this 1.13 doesn't seem right if Sushi Go's 1.16. I still don't think you're right with 1.76.
Messing with my weight ratings, man. Messing with
I wouldn't go all the way at 1.76.
Yeah,
but
probably.
By the way, no free copy for you.
I said 1.13, right?
Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah, that is our summary review of Ohanami. If you're curious in checking out the game, want to purchase a copy for yourself and feel like supporting this channel, feel free to use the Amazon link below to the game. And I hope you found this video interesting, helpful. If you did, hope you'll share this with friends, family, people you play board games with. Hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel and following us on Instagram at I Got Board Game. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.